I just finished, well, that globe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I have to say, as I was reading, I was, correlating to the 7 planes with which we are a little bit more familiar of our physical etheric map that we are given.
There's a definite relation.
Body and Malaka on all the way down through. Wow, that is pretty powerful, though. What we have been reading. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is really useful, because when you get specific references to globes in the writings, like we are getting in our reading now, then you can have this as a kind of universal reference here, that will give you information about what happens in any one of the chains, on any of the globes in any one of the chains, that these qualities are universal for all the chains. And so you get some sense of what's going on those globes from this. The only place I know that he details what happens on the globes.
Somehow, don't you think it correlates, though, to the plane of fire, and globe 2 somewhat correlates to the monadic plane?
Not quite.
Monad, in which a heavenly man embodies himself initially as a
It actually only relates to the 4 lowest planes of a given cycle. So what happens is, let me see if I have. I'm going to come out.
Me 3, 4, and 5.
I have an illustration here. Hold on a second. I have an illustration. I'm on slide 42. Yeah. So here, look at this slide. You see, here's an example. So we take just look at the part on the right. So this globes A and F, or 1 and 7, are on the 4th subplane up. For us, that would be Buddhic matter, right? Then globe B and let's see. So no, that's G. So F, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. So B and F would be on the monastic plane, and then C and E on the astral, and D on the dense physical. So it's not linear.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I mean? Yeah.
I see what you're saying there.
So, but they are, as you suggest, they are related, but it's not in an absolute relationship of all the globes for each level.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No, you bet. Okay, so where was I? 40. Yeah, and you can see it here too. All right.
42.
42, thank you. I lost my place. Okay, notice here that, here, let me go back into full play mode. The DK gives us the round and root race numbers, but leaves out the globe numbers. But then states that it is on globes 3, 4, and 5 that the monastic principle is developed. So if we correlate the following 3 passages, first, finding its point of accelerated vibration, or the unification of the 2 modes of manifestation, rotary and spiral cyclic, in the middle part of what we call the 3rd chain. That's from the text that we're now reading. Second, individualization upon the moon chain took place in the 5th root race of the 3rd round. And third, what we just read, globes 3, 4, and 5 are those through which he demonstrates the possession of the monastic principle. So if we correlate those 3, we can hypothesize that, first, the blending of the 2 forms of motion. Second, individualization, and third, demonstration of the monastic principles are very likely to be related, and that this great threefold event took place during the fifth race of either the third, fourth, or fifth globes of the third round of the third chain, which is alternately called the moon or the Saturn chain. The numbers 3 and 5 are monastic in character. That's the third ray, the third or fifth globe, the third chain, and the third root race are naturally conducive to a blossoming forth of the monastic principle, just as the second globe of the second chain was conducive to introducing the influence of the second logos. What's the point? How powerfully influential the numbers of these cycles are, the numbers of the entities in the cycles. It's as though they participate in a very specific energetic that is so important that it aligns them even across chains and across globes, root races, etc., that they're demonstrative of that particular energetic, in this case, either the second, which of course is the nature of the second ray, and of the third, the nature of the third ray. As a side note, all right, there we go. It's interesting to note that though we have globe numbers for the second, fourth, and fifth chains, as shown here at left, DK doesn't provide globe numbers for the third chain. This might be, sort of theosophical nerdiness, but you have to wonder, if he knew the numbers for the second, wouldn't he also know the numbers for the third? And if so, why did he leave it out? Could it somehow be misused? It's just an interesting side note. Okay. Finally, let me get back into full mode here. Okay, so finally we have to keep in mind that when chronicling monastic development on the third and fourth chain, shown here, the time elapsed between the middle of the third and fourth chains is inconceivably long. For remember, we not only have to consider the globes, but also the rounds, meaning that the time elapsed between the middle of one chain to the middle of the next chain represents a sevenfold passage of the life wave through 7 globes, each with 7 root races, each of those of which lasts millions of years. So that gives us 343 root races between this period, when the introduction of the monastic principle first took hold, and this period, our present period. Okay. To end the paragraph, we'll back up a line. Finding its point of accelerated vibration, or the unification of the 2 modes of manifestation, rotary and spiral cyclic, in the middle part of what we call the third chain, ... This is, after all, the blending of the activity of Brahma with the onward progress of Vishnu. We have the correspondence to this in the sum total of the effects brought about in the second and third root races. Again, we see the primacy of numerical relationship, right? Another example of 2 and 3 coming together, presumably demonstrating through the second and third rays. since we have strong evidence that the blending of the two types of motion is related to monastic development, which happens in the third root race, we might assume that the second root race demonstrates only through rotary motion. Thus, we see a reverse numerical relationship between the second and third races and the motions of the second and third principles. So the following statement contrasts the second and third root races. Quote, the two earliest root races in this round are not definitely human, and that it is the third root race which is really human for the first time. Beyond this, there are only two statements in the blue books that specifically reference the second root race. The first tells us that it is during this root race that the sense of touch is developed. Second, with the sense of sight not developing until the third root race. DK says, in connection with this correspondence, it is to be noted that sight came in with the third root race in this round, and that the third race saw also the coming in of mind. So could we get a reader for this only other reference to the second root race, please? And I'll let you take it over from here, Mikhail.
Okay. Is Gordon asking the question, or are you wanting to read?
I have a question.
Great. What's that?
Well, this is back on the different levels of the different globes in a round. You said that the A and G would be on the Buddhic plane and going down like that. I've seen information. So you have globe D on the dense physical plane, but I've seen information says the two globes before and after that are actually on the etheric plane. And then, you know, B and F would be on the astral, and A and G would be on the
I've seen
mental.
that. I've seen that as well. Yeah. And often they're associated, like here we have it, where they're associated with elements, right? So this particular, see, air, water, and earth, this one would then orient it towards, you know, the third round as being, but see, that's rounds. It wouldn't necessarily hold that the globes would follow the elements that are followed in the rounds, though one would think it might. But yes, I can't really reconcile that for you. I have seen both ways also described. So yeah, you just have to kind of, until you can have a direct experience of globe C or E, which we will at some point, you know, frankly, let's see, what do I think on that? I tend to think that what you're presenting is the more likely, mainly because of globes A and which is considered fire, and globe F. Because above this, you're really into the etheric planes of the planetary logos. You're not in the dense realm at all, even, you know, on the upper monastic. So, well, I'll just have to keep that question in mind and see if somewhere along the line there's further information about that, because that's very interesting.
And I've also seen, so first of all these rounds, you know, the globes would be on the same planes, but in a different chain. What I've seen is in the earlier chains, they are all, each one goes up a level, and then fourth chain is where they're down at the lowest level, and the fifth chain they go back up levels again.
I mean, it only makes sense, doesn't it, that the chains would follow this same pattern. So if you just change out the word round for chain, you would have the same map of how a scheme, which is the entire progress of this entity called the Earth, moves through its progression through 7 chains. So you would have this same kind of descent and ascent. Now, who knows what the nature of the substance of the cosmic physical plane, what it's experienced as. For instance, water, astral water, we know is not water at all. It's watery. It participates in certain qualities of water, and therefore it's an apt description of the astral plane, but it's not, our understanding of physical water. So all the more so for, different rounds and different chains. Thank you for that question. It's a good one. Anyone else?
Hey,
No other questions.
Okay, so let me get back here. Not there yet. Okay, to end the paragraph. I read that. Right, I read that. Sorry, guys. So I don't believe we've read this.
All right, so I don't know where we are in this list, so I'm just gonna go from
Yeah,
the
just do your
top.
thing.
And Veronica,
We might now briefly trace the correspondence in the second round and the second root race, showing how the law of cohesion was especially active at these periods. A condition of nebulosity of a pronouncedly volatile condition marked the first round and race. Movement and the accompaniment of heat is their distinguishing quality, much as in system 1, but in the second round and also in the second race. A definite cohesion is noticeable and form is more clearly recognizable in outline. Cohesion is also plainly to be seen as the distinguishing feature of our present system, the second. Sorry,
Hi,
I
Veronica.
butchered it a bit.
What's that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't read it very well. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Hopefully people are reading along as well. So it seems natural that the law of cohesion would characterize those periods during which the second logos manifests, since one of its functions is to create congruities of atoms through which the spirit aspect can demonstrate. And so the law of cohesion is used to bring together these congruities of atoms. Notice too that once again, the globe involved is omitted. It's interesting. Okay, next up, Ann Parker was in line for reading at one point. So
okay.
I'm happy to.
that's great. Thank you.
The activity of the second logos is carried on under the cosmic law of attraction. The law of economy has for one of its branches a subsidiary law of marked development called the law of repulsion. The cosmic laws of attraction and economy are therefore the, oh dear, I don't know French.
Let's see, let me.
Raison d'être.
Raison d'être.
Okay, thank you. Viewed from one angle of the eternal repulsion that goes on as spirit seeks ever to liberate itself from form. The matter aspect always follows the line of least resistance and repulses all tendency to group formation, while spirit, governed by the law of attraction, seeks ever to separate itself from matter by the method of attracting an ever more adequate type of matter in the process of distinguishing the real from the unreal and passing from one illusion to another until the resources of matter are fully utilized.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, so, gosh, sorry. I changed my systems and all the shortcuts changed. So, so first, let's take a closer look at the three laws here cited before we analyze DK's statement. So could we get a reader for this, please?
Heike.
The law of attraction. This law is, as we know, the basic law of all manifestation and the paramount law for this solar system. It might strictly be called the law of adjustment or of balance, for it conditions that aspect of electrical phenomena which we call neutral. The law of economy is the basic law of one pole, that of the negative aspect. The law of synthesis is the basic law of the positive pole, but the law of attraction is the law for the fire, which is produced by the merging during evolution of the two poles. From the standpoint of the human being, it is that which brings about the realization of self-consciousness. From the point of view of the subhuman being, it is that which draws all forms of life on to self-realization. While in connection with the superhuman aspect, it may be stated that this law of life expands into the processes conditioned by the higher law of synthesis, of which the law of attraction is but a subsidiary branch.
Okay, so particularly useful in this is that they are three laws that all belong to the same system. That you have the positive pole with the law of synthesis, the negative pole is the law of economy, and that energy which works to move one from the negative to the positive pole is the law of attraction. So it's one total system, not three separate laws, really. Okay, and now let's read about the law of repulsion. Can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Joe.
There. We have referred to the law of repulsion as one of the subsidiary branches of the great law of economy, which governs matter. Repulsion is brought about by rotary action and is the basis of that separation which prevents the contact of any atom with any other atom, which keeps the planets at fixed points in space and separated stably from each other, which keeps them at a certain distance from their systemic center, and which likewise keeps the planes and subplanes from losing their material identity. Here we can see the beginning of that age-long duel between spirit and matter, which is characteristic of manifestation, one aspect working under the law of attraction and the other governed by the law of repulsion. From eon to eon, the conflict goes on, with matter becoming less potent. Gradually, so gradually as to seem negated when viewed from the physical plane, the attractive power of spirit is weakening the resistance of matter till at the close of the greater solar cycles, destruction, as it is called, will ensue and the law of repulsion be overcome by the law of attraction.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, now let's analyze DK's statement. The activity of the second logos is carried on under the cosmic law of attraction. The law of economy has for one of its branches a subsidiary law of marked development called the law of repulsion. The cosmic laws of attraction and economy are therefore the raison d'etre, viewed from one angle, of the eternal repulsion that goes on as spirit seeks ever to liberate itself from form. So during an involutionary cycle, the law of repulsion completely dominates, using Fohat to separate primordial substance into discrete, separate forms. That's the whole purpose of that cycle of involution. Then, sometime around the midway point of a cycle, whatever cycle, the law of attraction begins to exert the greater influence. Remember where he said the second logos comes in, and the two forms of motion merge in the third chain? Well, that's that point in the cycle that the law of attraction begins to exert an influence, right? Such a point was achieved, as I just said, during the middle of the third chain when rotary and spiral-like motion became unified, thus marking a shift in the relationship between spirit and form. And then we are right now at the absolute midpoint, save one race. We've moved one root race past the midpoint of the entire scheme, right? We're 4, 4, 4, 4, right? Fourth scheme, fourth chain, fourth round, fourth globe, but the fifth root race. So we have just turned the corner in terms of moving back towards the influence of spirit. So we are at this place of absolute equilibrium, but we haven't achieved equilibrium. It's, in fact, we're in a very much of a warring stage between the two aspects, right? In the next globe, you will see a marked shift in terms of the nature of this relationship, and therefore a kind of triumph of the law of attraction. Next, the matter aspect always follows the line of least resistance and repulses all tendency to group formation, right? So the line of least resistance, also called the line of acquiescence, is one of the main attributes of the law of economy, which, by the way, the Deva Kingdom works to implement. Next. While spirit, governed by the law of attraction, seeks ever to separate itself from matter by the method of attracting an ever more adequate type of matter in the process of distinguishing the real from the unreal. This is important. We get important additional info here on how the law of attraction unfolds. This law's modus operandi is to distinguish the real or spirit aspect from the unreal. It does this by, quote, attracting an ever more adequate type of matter, thus enabling it to build forms capable of sustaining a higher and higher vibratory rate. So if you remember, there is a vibratory rate of matter at each one of the subplanes of the cosmic physical planes, right? So when you are able to transfigure your form aspect into the matter of one of the higher subplanes, then that very fact allows for the law of attraction to be much more effective in attracting the spirit aspect into your consciousness. So that's really one of the base reasons for the need for purification, at the lowest levels, just purifying at every level that you can in order to heighten your vibratory rate within even your physical body, but also your astral and mental bodies, right? So that you can, through study, meditation, and service further attract more subtler, higher vibratory rate matter into your system. Okay. And finally, we have, and passing from one illusion to another until the resources of matter are fully utilized. Passing, that is, by means of initiation into the ever subtler forms made available by the graded matter of the cosmic physical plane, until at the seventh initiation, the indwelling jiva is able to completely break free of the form aspect and moves on to the cosmic astral plane. But until then, for instance, at the fourth initiation, you take on the Buddhic sheath, and your form aspect then becomes Buddhic. And this allows you to repolarize towards the higher, and the threefold aspects becomes the triad rather than the mental, astral, and physical sheaths. So it's a question of moving ever into higher and higher vibratory rates of matter. So that, and here's the real point, that the consciousness aspect can impress itself. Okay? Anytime you have any questions, just jump in there. Okay, next up, could we get a reader, please?
Yeah. Gordon, did you want to read?
Okay. Eventually, the indweller of the form feels the urge or the attractive pull of its own self. The reincarnating jiva, for instance, lost in the maze of illusion, begins in the course of time to recognize, under the law of attraction, the vibration of its own ego, which stands to it as a logos of its own system, its deity in the three worlds of experience. Later, when the body egoic itself is seen as an illusion, the vibration of the monad is felt, and the jiva, working under the same law, works its way back through the matter of the two planes of superhuman evolution till it is merged in its own essence. Therefore, A, the goal of the second logos is consciousness, to be achieved in cooperation with the third logos. B, its function is the building of forms, to be his instruments of experience. C, his mode of action is cyclic and spiral, the revolution of the wheel of existence in ordered cycles for the specific purpose, and the progression of the spheres of matter around a fixed center within the solar periphery.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay, so first, eventually the indweller of the form feels the urge or attractive pull of its own self. The reincarnating jiva, for instance, lost in the maze of illusion, begins in course of time to recognize, under the law of attraction, the vibration of its own ego, which stands to it as the logos of its own system, its deity in the three worlds of experience. The building in of an ever higher grade of matter eventually allows for a response to the attractive pull of the true self. This response represents a turning point in the influence of the law of attraction as it seeks to overcome the law of repulsion inherent in matter. Thus, through raising the vibratory rate of the matter of the inherently rajasic personality, the sattvic quality of the soul aspect gradually begins to be felt. Next, later, when the body egoic itself is seen as illusion, the vibration of the monad is felt, and the jiva, working under the same law, works its way back through the matter of the two planes of superhuman evolution till it is merged in its own essence. So, as above, so below. DK reminds us that the body egoic is also substantive, and that the law of attraction eventually lifts us beyond even the subtle matter of the Buddhic and Atmic planes into the vibratory realm of the monad. If you have any questions or comments, please jump in. Next, therefore, the goal of the second logos is consciousness, to be achieved in cooperation with the third logos. B, his function is the building of the forms to be his instruments of experience. So, without a form through which to work, consciousness cannot develop. It's an important point. You can't divorce consciousness from the form aspect. It develops within and through the heightened vibration of the form. In fact, the miracle of consciousness is only possible because the form aspect has the ability to continuously adapt by further rarefying and sensitizing itself in accordance with the dictates of the indwelling jiva. This is the true meaning behind sculptures like this Trimurti and Shakti from the Khajuraho temple in India. This adjustment towards greater adequacy continues even on triadal levels, where we will eventually hone our monadic vehicles in order to further unveil the monad. So this really depicts an archetypal relationship. You can put it at any level. You know, if you use the Trimurti to represent the soul, then you can see that the matter aspect, when rarefied enough, matter is always represented by the feminine in Hindu, and the spirit by the masculine. So when it has been purified to the point that the indwelling, that the soul aspect can be impressed upon the matter, then you have this beginning of a relationship, of a conscious relationship, and what develops between them is consciousness, and that's really what's being indicated here. You know, the Christians that took over India saw this as just, you know, a degraded religion because of the sexual analogy, right? But that attractive sexual energy is an appropriate analogy for the attraction between soul and personality. If you take it up a step, this can be monadic, this threefold monad, right? And its attraction to the soul-infused personality. I like that particular one because it lifts this to a level that we can aspire to. But of course, what was almost certainly meant to by the sculptors who carved this was this highest universal aspect of the Trimurti, which are the three aspects of manifestation throughout all the universe. And then the Shakti would represent the entire material aspect that is attracted to it. But at all levels, it holds. Right? Okay. Okay, next up, C. His mode of action is cyclic and spiral. The revolution of the wheel of existence in ordered cycles for a specific purpose, and the progression of these spheres of matter around a fixed center within the solar periphery. Cyclic motion adds the function of evolution through time to rotary motion. Thus, progressive cyclic motion becomes spiralic, thereby fulfilling the purpose of some particular evolutional cycle. That purpose, driven by the first aspect or will to synthesize, is silently animated by the invisible central axis of the spiral. Okay, next up, can we get a reader, please?
Mystic Janet. Oh, is she still here?
I'm still here, yes. These three concepts are governed by the law of attraction, or the law governing the interplay of the action and reaction. A, between the sun and its 6 brothers. B, between the circling, whirling 7 planes of the solar system. C, between everything in the matter of all forms, the spheres of matter themselves and the aggregate of those spheres that are embodied in forms of still others. The first logos, the logos of the ray of cosmic will. His mode of action is a literal driving forward of the solar ring path knot through space until the end of this Mahamanvantara, or day of Brahma, the Logoic cycle. We shall not be able to conceive of the first aspect of will or power as it really is. We know it now as the will to exist, manifesting through the manner of the forms, the primordial ray and the divine ray. And we know it as that which some occult manner links the system upon its cosmic center.
Thank you. First, these three concepts are governed by the law of attraction, or the law governing the interplay or the action and reaction. The here cited three concepts governed by the law of attraction are the tendency towards the goal of consciousness, the tendency towards form building and continuous adaptation, and the mode of spiral cyclic progression. Action and reaction is determined by the interplay between energy and force, with energy always standing in the causal position. For example, the energy or action of spiralic motion impacts the force of rotary motion, resulting in a reaction, right? So the impress of the soul would be the energy or action upon the etheric centers of a human being, resulting in the reaction within those centers. And that is characterized by the term force or force centers. Okay, next. This is a real puzzler. Between the sun and its 6 brothers, who are the sun and its 6 brothers? At first, we might be tempted to think in terms of planetary brothers as described in the Secret Doctrine, but Martanda, the name of the sun in these writings, is always described as the 8th left out, with 7, not 6 brothers. Another possibility is the sun as one of the logoi of the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one. But then why would DK say the sun instead of our solar system? So after taking a look at this for a while, I think we have to go with the 7 sacred planets expressing the 7 rays, with the sun standing in for what? Vulcan? Mercury? Because both Vulcan and Mercury are said to be one with the sun. Or since it's a second ray entity, the sun, perhaps Jupiter. But it is a puzzler, and in Michael's notes, he was just as puzzled by this as well. So it's one of those open questions that we just have to hold, see if it's corroborated at any point. If you have any thoughts on this, any great theories as to why it would be the sun and its 6 brothers, please speak up. Okay, next, B, between the circling, whirling 7 planes of the solar system. Okay, circling suggests rotary, whirling suggests spiralic motion. Though demonstrating the 7 levels of rotary motion, we know that the 7 planes also respond to cyclic motion because the matter that makes up these planes evolves from one solar system to the next. The actual matter revolves from one solar system to the next. We've already read that in the next solar system, the matter will actually have inherent within it the love aspect and not just the intelligent activity aspect. It's an unimaginable reality to contemplate. We also know that the 7 subplanes of the cosmic physical plane form a sphere, which rotates, metaphorically, from east to west and is coexistent with and permeated by the sphere made up of the 7 rays, which rotates from north to south. Perhaps it is the influence of this ray sphere within the sphere of the 7 planes that initiates this whirling or spiralic motion as described here. Next, C, between everything in the matter of all forms, the spheres of matter themselves, and the aggregate of those spheres that are embodied in the forms of still others. So this is a list about how the law of attraction governs. It's a list of what is governed by the law of attraction. So, law of attraction also affects the matter of all forms, the key word being forms here. So the second logos, through its work with the third, influences the quote spheres of matter that make up the form world, forever adjusting and rebuilding these congeries of matter in order that they might better serve the indwelling jiva, so that consciousness can take hold in increasing measure. Any questions about these 3? That ends our these are just little thumbnail references to the 3 logi, but I find them very useful because they're given in terms of the nature of the motion involved. Okay, so next we move on to the first logos, who is the ray of cosmic will. His mode of action is a literal driving forward of the solar ring pass knot through space. And until the end of this Mahamanvantara, or day of Brahma, the logoic cycle, we shall not be able to conceive of the first aspect of will or power as it really is. So if you've ever seen an illustration of Walter Pullen's astrology software, he has this mode where he actually has calculated the movement of the sun through space. And it's just an amazing graphic because you see this sun plunging through space with these planets kind of forming this very elongated spiral following the sun as it moves forward. It really gives a strong sense of what this direct motion is. So this direct forward driving motion is both literal. Our solar system, astronomers tell us, is driving us towards Vega and eventually towards the constellation Hercules, and energetic, for the motion of spirit moves in direct accordance with logoic purpose, a motion that DK describes as progressive forward motion. So it's taking us towards a goal, for instance, in consciousness, as well as a point in space. And then finally, DK also makes the point that we can only understand the quality of the first logos through its influence on the form world, what we see around us, the influence that it has, not as this form of motion truly is. How could we? Because we can only relate to it through its effect, because its actual direct motion is invisible to us. And finally, we know it now as the will to exist, manifesting through the matter of the forms, the primordial ray and the divine ray. And we know it as that which in some occult manner links the system up with its cosmic center. So the primordial ray is the ray of active intelligence or active matter, which constitutes the energy of Brahma, the third aspect of the logos. The divine ray is the ray of love wisdom, which constitutes the energy of Vishnu, the second aspect, logoic. So could we get a reader for this passage, which further describes the first aspect?
Yeah, before that, we got a question from Vivian asking, could the 6 brothers of the sun be other suns, not planets in our solar system?
I don't, well, first of all, I don't know. When you say other brothers, that all the entities in this solar system take some spherical form, either etheric, monastic, astral, etheric, some form. So it is possible, but there's no information that correlates that. So it remains a mystery, but way to think. It's good to think about these things, right? I also just remembered that well, we're going to get to that in a minute, so I don't want to introduce the concept just yet. I'll refer back to this when we do get there. So could we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Kira, do you want to read?
I'm not able to read. I'm coughing a lot.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine.
Kirsten.
First aspect of the will to exist is governed by the law of synthesis.
Oh, hold it. You're very quiet. Could you somehow get closer to your mic?
Yes. The first aspect of the will to exist is governed by the law of synthesis and the activities of the cosmic entities who are its embodiments are governed by the law of enforced unity and of essential homogeneity. It's a law that eventually comes into play after spirit and matter are blending and adapting themselves each to each. It governs the eventual synthesis of self with self and finally with the all self, and also our essence with essence in contradistinction to the synthesis of matter and spirit. It demonstrates as 1, abstraction, 2, spiritual liberation, 3, destruction of form through the withdrawal of spirit, the destroyer aspect, 4, absolute homogeneity and absolute essential unity, 5, progress forward motion.
Thank you, Kirsten. Okay, so let's take a look at the phrase, we know it as that which in some occult manner links the system up with its cosmic center. So this center, which can be viewed as either objective or subjective, is sometimes associated with one of the three super constellations, the Great Bear, the Pleiades, or Sirius, but is also described as a point in space, a subjective point of return, as illustrated by the point in the center of a circle. One of the most esoteric references to the cosmic center comes from late in a treatise on cosmic fire. Could we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Magda, do you want to read?
Yes. Scientists have not yet admitted into their calculations the fact that our solar system is revolving around a cosmic center along with 6 other constellations of even greater magnitude in the majority of cases than ours, only one being approximately of the same magnitude as our solar system. This cosmic center, in turn, forms part of a great wheel till, to the eye of the illumined seer, the entire vault of heaven is seen to be in motion. All the constellations, viewing them as a whole, are impelled in one direction. The old commentary expresses this obscure truth as follows. The one wheel turns, one turn alone is made, and every sphere and suns of all degrees follow its course. The night of time is lost in it, and kalpas measure less than seconds in the little day of men. 10 million kalpas pass, and twice 10 million Brahmic cycles, and yet 1 hour of cosmic time is not completed.
Thank you. Okay. So we get some sense of this extraordinary cosmic center that draws our solar system and its 6 brother solar systems. There's like I said, this is one of the possible explanations for the sun and its 6 brothers, right? But it drives all 7 solar system towards a common goal. And this is a literal point in space, this idea. Okay. Next up, could we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Miri.
Yes. In a manner inconceivable to us, the first logos brings in the influence of other constellations. When this first aspect is better understood in the next Mahavamtar, the work of the 7 rishis of the Great Bear and the supreme influence of Sirius will be comprehended. In this present manifestation of the sun, or of the Vishnu aspect, we are concerned more closely with the Pleiades and their influence via the sun, and in relation to our planet via Venus. The subject of the first logos, manifesting only in connection with the other 2 in the system, is profound mystery, which is not fully understood by even those who have taken the 6th initiation. The first logos embodies the will to live, and it was through his instrumentality that the Manasapurtras came into objective existence in relation to the human and Deva hierarchies.
So you probably noticed information has become very, very esoteric. And of course, that's because he's talking about the first logos, which is the pure spirit aspect. Okay, first, in a manner inconceivable to us, the first logos brings in the influence of other constellations. So this references some mechanism by which the spirit aspect of our logos draws the influence of quote unquote other constellations into our solar system. Now, the inconceivable nature of this influence notwithstanding, DK does tell us that, quote, the first aspect works through a word of power. This word is often associated with the lost word in Masonry, which can only be discovered by a third initiate, which is in keeping with the parameters of the life wave called the outpouring of spirit, which is governed by the first logos, and thus can only be experienced by initiates who have built the Antakarana. Could it be through an even higher cosmic word or sound that the first logos attracts the influence of other constellations, which, if translated, might mean, hey, over here. Anyway, next up. When the first aspect is better understood in the next Mahamanvantara, which is the next solar system, the work of the seven rishis of the Great Bear and the supreme influence of Sirius will be comprehended. So, as I just said, the next Mahamanvantara is the next solar system, during which time the goal of humanity will become identification with the spirit aspect rather than with the consciousness aspect. So that we will have become one with the second principle, with the soul aspect, and we will be working to unify with the spirit aspect. Thus, it is natural that the next solar system will be aligned with the Great Bear. But since it's expressive of the first ray. But why will, quote, the supreme influence of Sirius be more fully comprehended? We normally think of Sirius as the source of love wisdom for our solar system, since it represents the soul aspect of our sun. But the fact that the influence of Sirius makes its way into our solar system via both Uranus, which has a first ray monad, and will be the final synthesizing planet of this solar system, and through Saturn, which rules first ray Capricorn, suggests that Sirius does have a first ray influence on our solar system. And we might also hypothesize that just as eventually we become soul infused, in the next solar system, the consciousness of our solar system will rise to the level of the consciousness now demonstrated by Sirius, thus revealing this supreme influence. Next. In the footnote from the Secret Doctrine, referenced by the, quote, seven rishis of the Great Bear, that footnote reads, the Hindus place their seven primitive rishis in the Great Bear, the prototype of the animating source of the seven heavenly men. The planetary logoi are considered the seven existences who function through the seven stars of the bear. So the term prototypes or the animating source could be seen as a state of consciousness equivalent to the monad of a planetary logos. Though DK never says straight out that the stars of the Great Bear are the monads of the planetary logoi, there is, it's suggested, right, as their prototypes or animating source. So next up, in this present manifestation of the sun, or of the Vishnu aspect, we are concerned more closely with the Pleiades and their influence via the sun and in relation to our planet via Venus. So let's take a look at MDR's commentary on this passage. Can we get a reader, please? Just the over here. This is the phrase that he's referencing that I just read. So can we get a reader for this part?
Yeah, Lisa, do you want to read?
In this present manifestation of the sun or of the Vishnu aspect, we are concerned more closely with the Pleiades and their influence via the sun, and in relation to our planet via Venus. Do you want me to read the rest too?
Yeah, that's what I actually wanted you to read.
Pardon. This is surely interesting, as when we think of the Pleiades, we usually think of an influence related to the third aspect of divinity. Indeed, some third ray influence does come from the Pleiades, and we can never forget the link of Venus to the principle of intelligence. However, the Pleiades are also the source of cosmic booty, and hence would reasonably be correlated to developments within our second or Buddhic solar system. 3, the cosmic Buddhic plane and the constellation of the Pleiades. Hang on a minute. I'm sorry.
That's right.
In Treatise on Cosmic Fire, which appeared earlier than Esoteric Astrology, DK seems to be hinting at a triangle. He there mentioned Pleiades, Cancer, Venus. At least 2 of the 3 sources are given, and there is at least a relation. The triangle here suggests Pleiades, Sun, Venus. Makes sense for our second ray solar system. The relationship of the Pleiades to the solar angel is therefore inferred. For the Sun and Venus are both sources for the solar angels. In the following treatise on cosmic fire reference, the relation of the Pleiades to the solar angels is given directly. Be force from the Pleiades via the solar angel or ego. Treatise on Cosmic Fire, 1157.
Thank you, Nisa.
Welcome.
Any thoughts or comments about this? So what he's grappling with here is that the Pleiades is normally seen as a source of the third principle or the third ray, right? Whereas in this quote, he relates it to the second ray or the Vishnu aspect, right? Manifested in the sun, the Vishnu aspect, right? And because, and relating them to 2 other Vishnu aspect planets, Venus and the sun. Okay. Next up. This subject of the first logos manifesting only in connection with the other 2 in the system is a profound mystery, which is not fully understood by even those who have taken the 6th initiation. So DK took the 5th initiation in 1875, so we might assume that he had not taken the 6th by 1925 when TCF was written. Thus, even he could not fully understand the mystery put forth here. But just what is this mystery? That the first logos chooses to manifest only through the agency of the second and third logos? On the face of it, that seems a given. So there's, certainly something some mystery that we're not being, that's not being even hinted at here. I mean, could it just be the mystery of the first logos in general? Who knows? Open question. Finally, the first logos embodies the will to live, and it was through his instrumentality that the Manasaputras came into objective existence in relation to the human and Deva hierarchies. So the will to be, the will to exist, and the will to live all express the same cosmic desire by which the first aspects initiates a Manvantara via this second principle, right? which are the Manasaputras. So for a solar logos, the Manasaputras, divine Manasaputras, are the planetary logi, and it's through them that manifestation takes place. For a monad, the Manasaputra is it's the soul aspect, and it sends that being forth in order for manifestation to take place. So it happens, again, as above, so below, at every level. So there are at least three classes of Manasaputras. The first are the divine Manasaputras, which DK calls, quote, the seven heavenly men, the seven divine Manasaputras, or the seven types of love, wisdom, or wisdom, love. The Solar Logos is also referred in the text as a divine Manasaputra. Then there is that class of Manasaputra referred to as the sons of mind, which seem to best relate to the phrase that appears here in the text. The Manasaputras came into objective existence in relation to the human and deva hierarchies. A phrase which suggests that the energy of the first logos was somehow instrumental during individualization, that not only was animal man brought into the fourth kingdom, but also that the Manasaputras, the souls, were objectified by the first logos in order to facilitate this process of bringing animal man into the human kingdom. Okay, next up, could we get a reader, please?
Yeah, just before that, just to clarify, it was 1875, right?
Yeah, 1875, that's what I said. Did I say 18 something else?
No, she was just double checking.
Oh, yeah. He had his fifth initiation in 1875, which also happens to be the year of a hierarchical conclave. It's at every 75th year of a century. And I very much doubt that those two events are a coincidence. He was probably initiated at the time of that conclave. And then again, not coincidentally, this book, Treatise on Cosmic Fire, was published in 1925, which was also the year of this really major hierarchical conclave. Okay, can we get a reader, please?
Robert. Is Robert there?
You there, Robert? Wake up.
That must be why it's so quiet.
Yeah, I don't see his. I see a raised hand here.
Yeah, Magda, you got a question?
Yes, it was concerning my question. Thank you. 1875, then I understood correctly. And you mentioned this hierarchical change. Okay, I don't know if it's pertinent right now, but I would be interested in knowing more than that. If you can give me a reference. And also my question basically is, I always heard about this hierarchical change in
It's
reference.
actually conclave, not change. Conclave.
Conclave.
It's a great meeting of all certain groups within the hierarchy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always heard it in connection with what in the West we call Archangel Michael, that he graduated, so to say, to from Archangel to Archiral in the, I don't know if you call it that way, or the hierarchical angel thing. I don't know in theosophy how you call this. Seraphim, cherubims, podestas.
It'd be a great deva. It'd be a great deva. Yeah, I don't know about that part of it. I haven't read about,
No, so since I heard 1875, which corresponds to what I'm talking about, I'm saying, I mean, it cannot be a coincidence. So I was trying to put the two information, yours
Yeah,
and mine,
sure.
together.
Right. Yeah, and they probably very much are related because
Yeah.
that's always a monumental year in the unfoldment of a century. Even more so is the 25th year, which is just around the corner for us, where the plan for the new age will be laid out by the hierarchy, and
Right.
for us to, and it's for that we've been preparing really since the last conclave in 1925, and one that we don't hear much about, 1975. Of course, that was after DK fell silent, and so we don't have any info, but I'm sure that it was an important conclave. We do know that all of those conclaves that we've been talking about, there was a great shambolic impact. It started in 1875 when, part of the decision was to begin to create a direct link between Shambhala and humankind, rather than having all the energy pass through the hierarchy to humanity. And one of the downsides of that effect was the rise of of Hitler and his 6 cohorts who were able to make use of that shambolic energy in black magic. But much more importantly, that establishment of that direct connection allowed for the new group of world servers to come into being, and which act as a go-between between the hierarchy and humanity, and are the major agency for distribution of energy between the hierarchy and humanity. It's really that group of incarnated world servers, conscious world servers, who are carrying out the goals of the hierarchy, and it's through that preparation that hopefully will change the balance between spirit and matter more towards the spirit aspect, and allow for the coming of the Christ. And that's still an open question as to whether and how much that event will be delayed. So, but thank you, Magda, for your question.
Thank you.
We are out of time, so we'll pick up with this paragraph next time.